Yeah, I had intended to start the on air. I just was hoping to have more than four
So I
of us.
guess kind of what I'm thinking is, in
But we might
summation,
as well since we're actually starting to talk about things, we might as well. Yeah, go ahead.
what I'm thinking in summation is, yes, it could be done, and it would be a long way to go for questionable improvement of function.
Yeah, it's kind of my feeling too. I don't know, Greg, you see anything differently in seeing the video? I think Greg might have lost audio.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I was muted. He's got pretty good movement with what he's got. I would say at least maybe print something out. Let them try it. You know, if anything else, they could use the hand as a novelty factor.
So you're thinking...
Here's an idea. I just came up with it just now. What if we just took, just say like maybe one of my fingers, and you attached it to both proximal flanges on the fingers that he has, so that and then have a little fork that just comes over his metacarpal, so that when he bent his other two fingers, the other finger would just go together with it, you know, and only it would just be mounted right on the metacarpal flange. It would be one finger, and it would be operated by the proximal flanges on either side of it.
Possibility. Yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying. I'm just thinking about it. I keep coming back to that same question of, you know, is this going to let him do more? And I think especially at a younger age, I don't know. I find myself wondering, and I'm not a medical, you know, professional or anything, but I just can't help but wonder if he might be able to be more adaptable and working with somebody might get more functionality out of it just the way it is, instead of trying to add a fabricated part. But that's just, I don't know. That's just kind of my gut feel.
One of the biggest inhibitors to that idea is the way his fingers are splayed out on either side. His index and his pinky are splayed out, and that would be hard to pick that up, because it would inhibit anything you put on there to pick up that motion, like you said, is going to inhibit his ability that he already had.
Right, and that index finger is very, very bent. You know, it's not going out straight, so that would probably be an issue too.
Right.
How old is this kid?
I think that they're going to. I think that it's going to be more of a surgical repair. If they can. I told you I talked to this doctor, and if they could twist his metacarpal, he would get a great deal of benefit out of that.
I would think so, and I don't know that side of it, but I have worked with somebody else who had similar little, I don't know what those are called, but the little nubs in the middle there, and she had those surgically removed. She was older, and so I wouldn't be surprised if they did that, which might make it easier to incorporate something in the middle there. So it might just be that something like this it might just be a little premature for him, but I'm just guessing.
Now, none of us, I'm certainly not me, I'm not qualified to make that kind of a judgment, but a hand surgeon that I met with recently is the guy that gave me the idea of going with 3 fingers instead of 4. Because these hands that I'm building are so underdeveloped, I don't have room for 3 fingers. And if I put 4 fingers, it would just look stupid.
Those are called with the little nubs in the middle there, and she had those surgically removed. She was older and easier to incorporate something in the middle there. So it might just be that something like this it might just be a little premature for him.
Right. Now, none of us, I'm certainly not me, I'm not qualified to make that kind of judgment.
So I think we're getting a loop back here.
The idea of going with 3 fingers.
Katie, I think you've got...
Because these kids that I'm building...
Go ahead and mute you. Katie, I'm sorry, I muted you. I think you had the audio playing back and we were getting it looped through for some reason. So you might have another window with the audio version playing or something.
Do you still have the... if you still have the Just a second.
Oh
Yeah.
no, we lost her.
Oh, she'll come back.
Okay.
Or she might.
Anyway, I was just looking up to check. I think he's 8 years old, if I'm not mistaken, but I'm going to double check that.
But anyway, one of the reasons
what
the
I
hand
found
surgeon
with no, I was gonna say one of the things I found with Luke, he's 7, and it's kind of more of a novelty, more than an everyday use type of thing for him. So I don't know how they would use it. You know how often when they're that young.
Well, his mom is one of our members and is actually helping us out. This is so I'm going to talk to her and just get a better sense of what her take on that is, and maybe we can revisit it then.
One of the stories that the hand surgeon told me while he was explaining this idea of using 3 fingers is he had a guy that came in and had one of his fingers, had to cut it off, and instead of cutting it off the metacarpal, he took it way back to the carpal, and he pushed his other fingers together, and he said his hand worked beautifully. So he just so that kid might be I know that we're not qualified to make that determination. I'm just saying that's what he said.
Okay, well that's real helpful. I don't think we need to take more time in this hangout, so Trouble, if you want to get back to other stuff, that's fine, but I'm going to follow up then with his mom, and we'll talk about those possibilities and then revisit if needed. Trouble, at some point, I don't know if it's appropriate to also talk today about your photos that you posted and maybe something along the lines of developing that custom design, but just wanted to throw that out there.
Okay. So I've got my hands posted. I don't know, what else do I need to add? Do I need to do? I guess I
don't think
should go
you
through
need to do anything. I think it's more a matter of kind of people on the design end getting together and starting to work on making a model and adjustments and measurements and all that.
Right. One thing that's going to be different is because my hand has that like 30-degree bend, and it's radially. I wonder if that's going to make it harder to like if you put the frame on the sides, it's going to not go around the wrist. But if we did it like on the palm and distal, that might I don't know. That's the only real design hang-up I think is that my hand's going to interfere with.
Okay.
And we might be able to curve the bars around and have it, but I don't know. I'm not sure.
You kind of like split the difference.
Yeah, something.
Yeah.
I've got. Yeah, it's a radial club arm, so I don't have a radius. I just have an ulna, and so that's most of my deformity is from that. The shortening of the forelimb is a byproduct of not having 2 bones pushing equally to keep it full length, or to grow out to full length. And there are similar things like that going on. I don't know. I'm wondering if it would be possible to rotate the hinge a bit. If my hand were mounted like this angle with the fingers gripping, as opposed to this, I'm wondering if that would be an okay way. It means that the fingers are going to be pulling around a corner. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm having difficulty picturing the way the tendons
I think you have to use the best motion that you have to drive the device.
Right. My fingers have pretty strong grip. You can, I've got strength clenching. I don't have extension strength. I can make a fist. I can't straighten my fingers out very easily. I can straighten them with my other hand, but they kind of tend to curl.
But you
I
do
wore
have
an
some horsepower.
Elizarov's device. What's that?
You do have some horsepower in your flexion.
Oh yeah, I can squeeze a can. I can pick things up. I've got a lot of shoulder strength too. I can carry like a ton over my left shoulder or with my left elbow. I tend to carry everything on my left side so that my right hand is free to grab and to do fine manipulations. But I've spent enough time with my right hand in a cast that I can open doors and operate keys and whatever else I need to do with my left hand when I need to. I can even eat with my left hand.
I have a question. What if we could introduce some retraction springs, some extension springs, to straighten your hand out, and then use your fingers to operate the device?
Right, that's what I'm thinking. One of the things that I've been thinking about, so when I had the Elizarov's device on, which we were using to straighten the bone and lengthen the bone, one of the things that we did to try to increase the tendon lengthening is we mounted a piece of that thermoplastic on the end of the frame with a wire, and then we had rubber bands going to fishing line, going to little leather stirrups that would pull my fingers straight, and I would do exercises with them while I was in the Shriners hospitals. I'm thinking that something like that, something like a stirrup that goes over each of the fingers, that goes to whatever cables we're using for the tendons, would,
absolutely,
would be sufficient. And then use elastics to pull the fingers back. And you wouldn't even have to run the elastics to the fingers. I think that just having the elastics pull the fingers straight on the device would pull the cables straight and pull my fingers out. So it would be, I would be building extra strength with my arm too, using it, and I think that I would be also loosening the tendons, stretching the tendons, things that would benefit me anyway. Things that things that would be of use more than just orthopedically, as opposed to just mechanically enhancing my grip. So yeah, I've got some ideas.
Are you thinking of adding a mechanical finger device, or are you talking about just using your own fingers?
Well, using my fingers to pull the cables to make the mech end hand be able to pull a fist. Probably base it on a cyborg beast or a Talon.
So the idea here, Bob, was that his hand is curving almost at a right angle, and we would somehow arrange a cyborg beast so that the mechanical fingers would essentially go straight out, and his real fingers would be used to pull the cables.
I know, but I just had this idea while you were talking. What if we could introduce a device that only straightened out his existing fingers? And he would then, because he has got horsepower in his finger, how about if we just create a device to open his fingers?
I think that's a question for you, Trouble. I don't know, would that be helpful?
It might be something to make my fingers extend that would allow me to then grip, something to resist my fingers to make them extend that I could then grip around.
And it would become a therapeutic device.
Right, it would become something I could use for exercising and for doing squeezes and for things like that. Are you thinking it would be something that I could use for gripping as well? Something that I could resist against a grip, but it would extend my fingers so that I can reach out to put it down on top of whatever I'm about to grab, or whatever.
Right.
I could see that being of use. The other thing that we were talking about, or the other thing that we were thinking about in the design criteria for a hand for me was, since we were doing this as part of the myoelectric design, having a place to mount a thumb and seeing if we can figure out ways to get myoelectric signals to either reposition the thumb or even give the thumb like flexion or extension, no flexion, just to grip it or to rotate it. Since I don't have a thumb on my left hand, we were thinking about using maybe myoelectric to find a way to make a thumb work. We could still have the squeezing, pulling the thumb in. The gripping with the thumb could still be mechanically driven by one of my fingers, but using the myoelectric to reposition it was, I think, what we were discussing in the myo discussion group the last time we did that. Am I right, or am I making sense?
Absolutely. I'm just taking notes as you talk.
Have you seen my thumb? I developed a thumb that does the radial and palmar deflection with a little gear.
Okay, I've seen some of your posts on it, but I haven't. I don't think I've seen it actuated. I don't think I've seen it in use.
Okay, I'll do a post tomorrow on it because I have it finished, and it works pretty well.
Yeah, I'd like to see that.
Okay.
I'd like to see that being of use.
Because it gives your ulnar built into the device, and you can adjust it with your other hand. So you can change it whenever you want to go fishing or drink coffee or whatever it is that you want to do with it. You can change the attitude of the thumb and still operate it in the same way.
Okay. Yeah, I can see the use of adjusting the thumb. Are we still thinking about attaching this to like a cyborg beast or a talon, or are we thinking about the other idea with just something for extending my fingers?
That would be up to you.
Okay. Let's go with the cyborg beast. I think that things we can learn from that might be more applicable to more people than just me. If we're just extending my fingers, I don't know, kids with radial club arms who have lengthened their arms with Elizarov's devices are probably not our largest target audience. So, that would be useful, and that would be fun to design that. And once I've got my 3D printer, I'll probably play with that and see what I can do for just something to wear to extend my fingers. But I think that figuring out a way to put something like the cyborg beast or the talon on my left hand would be a more useful device for me and for us for testing things on.
Well, that's very helpful. I'm capturing all that in the notes. So we've got, the possibility of the modified cyborg beast design that would extend outwards but be actuated by the real fingers. We've got the alternative of a device that would help to extend the fingers, and then the possibility of exploring a mechanical thumb to work with the existing fingers. But I noted your point, Trouble, that you're thinking that the modified cyborg beast might be more useful and also to others with a similar condition. So that's very helpful. Thanks.
Right. And since since this is for development, I've got a fairly limited. I'm a fairly limited use case. So I think that anything we can do to expand what we can use, what we're developing with me, so that it could be used for other people would be, better. I've relearned to use my hands in new configurations. I don't know, like half a dozen times in my lifetime. Um, my thumb was a useless joint when I was born with it. I basically would tuck it back behind my hand to get it out of the way and just use my fingers for everything. We did some surgeries to fuse all the joints. We routed a tendon from the ring finger over to the thumb, so that so I had to learn to separate the motions of my ring finger and the thumb, because one of the tendons used to go to the ring finger, and so I had to relearn how to use my thumb. I had to learn, it takes a while to train muscle memory, but I'm good at that. Even though I'm 40 years old, I think I can still get use out of new equipment. But I don't want to, if I'm playing with it in a way that simulates the way other people are going to need enhancements, that makes more sense to me. I can adapt myself a lot easier. I can adapt my use of things a lot easier than I guess other people can. I've done it enough that, so anything I can do to help out as we do this design. Yeah, if we use a design that can be used for other people as well as me, that would be better in the long run, I think.
Well, I got to say that's real class.
Okay.
The cyborg beast, the modifications on it, you're probably better off just designing something new altogether.
Right,
I mean,
it's going to need
just
probably need a significant redesign of the whole gauntlet.
Yeah, because you're basically tearing out the whole knuckle blocks of your finger, and I don't know what that's going to leave.
Yeah. I have a feeling that we're not going to have the wrist motion on the hand we end up doing, so I think mostly we're losing the gauntlet. I think the knuckle block is probably fine.
Oh, you guys are out here.
If we're extending my hand beyond my left hand, if we're going around that 90 degree or that 45 degree or whatever, however far my arm bends, if we're going past it this way, I think that you could leave the knuckle blocks all the same for the most part. Maybe put a second post through it so that it doesn't have the wrist flexion. Since we're just going to be running the tendons through that block to individually move the fingers, I don't think we wouldn't need to have the that movement. So. But I think that the paths going through the back of the palm for the tendons to run, that's still of use, and I think that I think there's still a lot of good design that we wouldn't have to throw away with the existing hands.
I see where I see where you're going with this. Your hand would be, you're going to have to lose 2 inches. Your hand's going to become 2 inches longer or more, 3 inches longer, to make up for all that space you're going to use to allow your finger flexion. And so that's
right.
That's fine. That's not a problem. I would like to work on this. I tried to download that new SolidWorks cyborg today, and the Palm wouldn't load for some reason. But once I get this thing downloaded, because I use SolidWorks, and I'm not a grandmaster by any means, but I think I would like to, if you could send me a couple sketches of your hand, I would like to take a stab at doing the SolidWorks on this. It would be easy because you could just, like you said, you wouldn't need the carpal rotation at all. That would be gone.
Right.
And I would like to take a look
So
at that.
just to clarify,
Okay.
go ahead.
Okay. Hi, Nick.
Hello.
No, you go ahead. You were talking.
So you're after effectively your hand is right here, right?
Mm-hmm.
More or less.
More or less.
So
It lines up with the fingers extended.
So-
The fingers reach just barely onto the palm. So it's a good 3 inches of length difference between my hands.
Okay. Yeah, I'm definitely like in the drawing up a model in SolidWorks. I'm all over the inventor in SolidWorks. But so I was just gonna post this, but I'll do it after the meeting. As you guys saw, I was taking plaster casts. So this is thumb, right? And this is a really good reproduction in terms of geometry. But so I put it in the scanner and I scanned it, and this is now a hollowed out version of my thumb.
Oh, cool.
And this is fit up. It's perfect.
That's cool.
So the idea is we send you a kit that has alginate and plaster, and it's literally like $5 of materials, and then you could send us or me the plaster cast, and I will scan your whole hand.
And then you could send that model over to Bob, right?
And I can, yeah, I'll post it, and anybody that
Can you make that in
wants
SolidWorks?
to work on it can fit you up. Yes, this here I will screen share the I will in my post I'll give a brief. It's a little bit of a long process right now to go from plaster to NURB surface, but I've got it mostly down pat. So I think this should be a screen share. So this is
one of my customers has.
And if I roll back here, you should be able to see the imported geometry. So this is what I imported into SolidWorks, and I went ahead and subtracted it from a block just for the sake of fit up. But this is a sub-millimeter accuracy model using a Next engine. It's really a great scanner, I gotta say. But yeah, I really think it would be feasible if people can just ship their plaster to, for now just us, I guess. But eventually it could be decentralized. Because yeah, this is the stuff.
I do work for Tulsa Dental Supply.
That's really cool.
One of my customers, and they do. It's endodontic. I do R&D for endodontic people. Anyway, they said that they've got an MRI scanner that they just bought, and they would let us use it for free.
Really? Well,
Yeah.
what do you mean, like a micro MRI? Okay.
I couldn't tell you
I don't know how that
the density of it, but it's a pretty high-end machine. I'm pretty sure.
I mean, any MRI is. It's just they're insanely expensive to run. I wouldn't think they'd let you use a.
Well, I do work for them, and this guy's a real good friend of mine, and he said that they bought this and they haven't even used it yet, and they would like to have a project to use it, and he offered to do any scanning that I might need.
If you've got some, specs or model numbers on the machine, that'd be great. Kind of figure out what we're dealing with.
I will get those. I will get those and send them to you.
But I mean, excellent. I'm a big proponent of the alginate casting process because I can literally ship. You can buy this at the store for $10, make a plaster cast that is sub-millimeter, and then have that shipped and scanned sub-millimeter, and have literally, I mean, you could probably pull a slate vacuum on this and it would stick to my thumb. But I think it's really a big deal in terms of fitting up transradial, and you know, people want to get into the leg stuff, but the touchy thing is the fit up, and I feel like this may actually bridge the gap.
I'll tell you, I don't want to get into any lower extremity prosthetics, because those people that have been doing that are so good at it, and they work so well. I don't see any point in trying to duplicate any legs.
Well, same as everything else we do would be for cost, but I'm still opposed to legs for safety reasons.
Right. That, you know, that it is in the Class 2 regime, no questions, which, you know, makes it a little bit more difficult. But yeah, the fit up is one of the biggest issues, and this would solve that.
It's a totally different discipline,
in my opinion, at least. Is it though?
Yeah, everything's different. I mean, mechanically, all the dynamics are completely different. The connection point is much more critical. There is more risk involved. It's just a total different animal.
And that's why it's a Class 2 device.
Right.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, fundamentally, there are a lot of similarities. No doubt there is much higher risk, much higher loading, and all that going on. But in terms of the fit-up problem, this is a solution to the fit-up problem. Because, yeah, you'll definitely not find any lower extremity prosthesis that is not orthoplastic, you know, or scanned as this is directly to the user.
Yeah, there was the video. Somebody posted a post here not long ago about the making of a prosthetic leg, and it was insanely complicated. I mean, vacuum machines and special grinders and all kinds of special tooling.
Well, a lot of the vacuum machines is just going to be a matter of doing any composite work. If they were making it out of carbon fiber, it's unavoidable.
Yeah, that was a carbon fiber cup. That was some serious business.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter what you're making out of carbon fiber. It'll be a impressive process. I saw, speaking of carbon fiber, this $40,000 transradial prosthetic at Maker Faire today that was totally worth most of that cost. Way better than that other one that Jeremy had in his video. And it had all sorts of fancy functions, but the thing that I really liked on it was that it had a silicone sleeve that went up to about the middle of his bicep, and then there was a little thing on the middle of the forearm that you pulled, and it pumped the air out of that silicone sleeve to suction the arm on.
Yep.
Very interesting.
That's standard practice, especially in lower extremity, is, you know, either single pump or constant, like a couple bar vacuum for the cup. Was it a Deca arm by chance?
No, it was, I want to say Bionic.
Yeah, that's a nice one.
Okay. Well, of course, Deca just got approved, right? So maybe not.
Yeah, I don't know, it had a wrist that could rotate through 360 degrees and keep going, and then it had a bunch of different modes that he could switch by
Hey, you know the story with that guy?
buttons.
You know
that's the one that was on that video of the guy tying his shoelace.
Yeah, he said he tied his shoes for the first time that morning. He'd only had it for a week or two.
Wow.
What were you saying, Joshua?
The guy with the in move with the Arduino stack strapped on it.
Oh, yeah.
You know the story with that?
Yep, ran into that guy for a while. Yeah, Bionico. Yep. Works pretty well.
Hey, Nick, do you think that armband that Alex is talking about has any promise?
I haven't seen that. Give me a link. Or what? Is it not a what is this?
Are you talking about the Mayo
Give
armband?
access.
Oh, the thing that's being advertised to go with Oculus Rift.
It,
Yeah.
it is not suitable for our application.
Do not think
Okay.
we want that, no. Yeah,
It only gives gestures. It doesn't give direct access to the data.
yeah, and Bionico and the guy with the $40,000 prosthetic both talk to each other a lot about how important the placement of the probes was, and how they'd been adjusting it a lot to get it to work better and stuff like that. So I do not think just a simple band will work out well.
Yeah, that was always what I was worried about with the Mayo band, is that it looks like it wouldn't be lined up with where it needed to be most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Of all the talents I have, electronics is not one of them.
I know the in-move guy was using
Using
disposable required electrode. What was the more expensive arm?
Yeah, okay, so the more expensive arm had things like the one in Little Grace's arm. It's 3 strips of metal. His are $350 a pop to replace, but shouldn't ever need replacing. They're titanium, I think. I'm not entirely sure why you would use titanium, but they are.
They were three electrodes each, right?
No, both of them ran on two sensing input. Oh no, that's not true. The in-move hand had a bunch of them on there, I think. But his was definitely 2 inputs. And each of those inputs was 3 parallel strips of titanium.
3 parallel strips for bipolar, bipolar EMG.
Mm-hmm. They also pressed into his skin pretty hard. He took the arm off and you could see the imprints of the strips pretty clearly.
Which would get really annoying and could cause wear and tear if there was any force at that location.
Yeah, well,
yeah, that's not going to.
I think it's more a matter of the suction than the them sticking out.
Not pressure.
Yeah, there were little.
Able to tolerate that for long.
He seemed to have been wearing it all day.
Yeah.
Guys, real quick, Greg had something he wanted to suggest. Greg, are you back on audio? Do you have?
Okay. What my idea was, and I had thought about this a while back, was in order to make the palm kind of twist, like in Trouble's case, Bob, what would you think of here at the base, where these arms are, of something like a hub bearing that would allow this to twist back and forth, but maybe printed out of plastic?
For wrist designs or transradials?
Well, like in Trouble's.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was before you joined, Nick. We were talking specifically about Trouble's design. This was kind of tied to the action item we took from the Mayo group meeting and the photos he uploaded. So we were talking specifically about like possible modification to cyborg.
Yeah, so he's not going to have a carbon.
Yeah. Yeah, so I was thinking that if we're going to do with my hand, we need something to get the motion from my fingers, but it would make sense to rotate the hand about 90 degrees and mount the plates on the front and back of the wrist since that way it can extend out like that instead of.
I understand what you're saying. Yeah, that makes total sense. Makes total sense.
But we would have to.
The only thing I could see it affecting. Right, is the way the strings run through.
Right, that's what I was worrying
Um,
about, is if we do that, we have to have some way to route the strings through, and that might actually require a pulley or something. It's going to be almost a 90-degree bend at that point, or we're going to have the strings
You know,
going in
gimbal.
really
That's
strange
the,
directions.
fine.
the interesting thing about this is that earlier Bob had talked about a possible device that might help to extend your fingers, and it turns out that this might be one and the same thing here, where if you have the cords from the cyborg beast routed in a proper way, you know, that's actually going to help to keep the fingers a little bit more flexed, like in a natural position, where then when you you know,
Extended.
flex them in, extended I meant, sorry, and when you flex them in,
Yeah,
it would activate the mechanical fingers.
yeah,
I don't know, just an
that's
idea
what
I
I was
had.
thinking. So you're thinking about a rotational wrist that you can still operate the fingers even when the wrist has been rotated, or having a wrist that can be rotated and still have grip?
Yes.
Was I understanding you correctly?
Yes, this is completely one line here. Full rotation.
Hmm.
And as you can see, there are nice 5 little semicircle there.
Oh, that's cool.
But could that be
But yes,
adapted to the cyborg beast hand?
this is obviously for a transfer radial application, so there's, you know, palm volume, whereas the cyborg beast, that is, you know, contradictory to the intended application. But for Trouble's hand, this is what you want, right? Because there's going to be this palm, but
Right.
the lines will be routed from
Right.
the fingers and her wrist.
So it's essentially pairing that design with something like the cyborg beast gauntlet, and then a rerouting
Right.
of the cords,
Or-
right?
Or something, yeah.
Something,
It's very
some way
sort
to
of custom.
take that design. Yeah, some way of taking that design and strapping it to my wrist, and maybe some mechanical way to rotate it, to you know, release the tension so that it could be rotated, and then retighten it. I can think of a few ways to do that. Mostly just tension.
All right. Well, tell you what, if you can get a plaster
Something
cast
screwed into the side.
to me, I can scan it.
Okay. Okay. I will send you address information.
And that would,
Yeah, that's perfect, because that's not only going to help us do this, but it's going to help us test that whole process out.
yes.
Right. It'll give us a way to play with it. One question with if I'm making a cast of my hand, should I try to find a way to have my fingers extended in it, or should I just let them stay curled once it's inside? Is that gonna
So that's kind of an interesting
make a
question.
difference, or is that going to?
Because you're absolutely right. The surface geometry of your arm is absolutely changing whenever you're pronation, supination, flexion, extension. There's, you know, the surface geometry is changing. It's all flexible. So, I don't know what the heuristic should be, if you will, in terms of positioning to get a plaster cast that will give the most data that's relevant.
Right.
I feel like it would be, yeah, sort of a relaxed curve, because we want to design a way that you can sort of grab, right?
Mm-hmm.
So whatever position
we want
is
a
most
way
comfortable.
to extend my fingers in it. Okay. I can figure it out.
Right.
I might do two. I might do two models.
Because that's
I might do
the
one
design
extended
from
and one
which forward.
flexed.
Yeah. Yeah, you can even do that, and if you want to get really fancy, you can like difference the meshes and figure out what's moving where. But yes, I feel like the relaxed position for a single cast is the way to go. We may find out that's not the case, but that would be my prediction right now. Because
Fair
yeah,
enough.
we want
That
it to
makes
be
sense.
comfortable for you to wear, right, and fit
Mhm.
when you're not grasping, right?
Right.
Hey
Okay.
guys, I'm unfortunately
So
gonna have to
Jeremy, are
jump
you gonna
off
set up
here. My,
little
my
kits?
wife just got home. Could I just ask that somebody else help out with taking any additional notes there, and I'll check those out later.
Okay.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you.
Right, see you.
Thank you for everything, Jeremy. The
Yeah,
fingers
no
look
problem.
great.
Thanks.
Anyway, what I was going to say before my phone went dead was, could you send me some sketches of your hand opened all the way out
Um, okay. I can
to
even
the
send
public?
you. I've got photographs posted if you want to see them, and I can probably create sketches from them.
I would like you to. I want is like if you lay your left hand right flat on a piece of paper and draw around it,
Okay, I
and
can do
then
that.
and another one vertically, and in an open position. And I'd like to do some SolidWorks on that, and I think I can. I have some ideas on that. Uh, I would like to do some work on it. If you could send me some drawings. My email address is on my profile.
Okay, I can get it to you.
Okay.
Kind of like Thanksgiving turkeys when you were a little kid.
Yeah.
Drawing
That's the tool I work from the best. It gives me something to measure. And if you could mark the center lines of your metacarpals on the drawing.
Okay. Yeah, I can show where all the pieces
Yeah.
where all
Yeah.
the
I like
joints end.
samples. Yeah, of your proximals and distals and all that.
Okay. And I can show where the palm ends and where
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
wrist would be if I had a
your carpal
radius.
center lines and all that. Although we're gonna hold your carpal still. We're not gonna use any of your carpal motion. Is that correct?
Right. Probably, yeah. I don't have. I've got some pressure, but it's not much. And there's
Yeah, we'll just use
some
that. We'll
fusion
just use
has.
that to support the hand.
Right. Yeah, I don't have much. I don't have much motion in the fingers to go that way. It's all at the fingers.
What I think is cool about this idea is that this will be a therapeutic device because you can increase the pressure of the springs as you go along,
Mm-hmm.
and you'll be able to
If I have
get
a way
a
to
great deal of range of motion.
right, if I have a way to loosen and tighten them, then I can increase my strength of my
Yeah.
fingers and increase the stretch on the tendons as I'm going along. Um, would we use springs or just rubber bands, or something similar, elastics?
I actually have done a lot of. I met with Peregrine a couple weeks ago. I went down to Oklahoma City to see him, and I worked with his Talon. And is that a Talon, Nick? Anyway,
Yeah,
I am not a
yeah,
fan of the elastics at all. I got a whole plethora of springs on McMaster recently, and I've got some really great springs that I really like. I have
okay.
1/8-inch diameter OD springs, extension springs, and they're
So,
O22 wire, and it really gives you the perfect motion.
What is the length, or what is the length difference on these springs of fully extended and
Right.
stretched back?
I
How
don't know
much
what
do
the,
they expand?
I don't know what the spring rate is, but I think that these springs can extend half of their original length.
Okay, that should be enough.
And I said 024 is actually
because
28 wire. Yeah. But you can
okay,
play with that too.
With fingers moving like that, there's a lot more distance being covered than. Well, I don't know if the connection is lower down on the finger, it's less. It's less motion, but if it's higher up on the finger, it's it's a bigger arc because
Well, let
it's
me ask
farther
you
out
this.
on the radius.
If we just straighten out, if we just apply spring pressure to your proximal, will that also extend your intermediate and distal? If we just only pull on your
I believe
proximal,
so.
will that do the job?
Oh, so if I just do the first joint, I get
Yes.
they curve.
Okay, so
Except for
you're going to need all
on
three.
one finger, which my index finger, all the joints are fairly stiff, so I can push before the knuckle and get full extension. But with the other fingers, they tend to curve under when I'm doing that. So I would probably need
You
something
would
resting near the
extend
fingertips.
all of it, right? Yeah, you extend all the joints completely.
Yeah.
Yes, I understand.
Yeah.
All right, I would like to look at this. I definitely. You've done a very good job of explaining the situation, and I would definitely like to work on this.
Okay.
I think I'm going to take somebody's advice, and it's going to be a total new device. It's not going to be anything like anything.
That'll work for me. So I think that's enough. I guess enough talking about my hands for now. I was going to ask anybody that was at the Maker Faire, what other cool things did you guys see?
There was a group from Guatemala to our left and Not Impossible Labs to our right. Not Impossible had a robo-arm, and I liked the wrist setup on that, but pretty much nothing else. It was... So, you know how there wasn't really instructions for robo-arm? It turns out that you're supposed to just buy 2 humongous sheets of orthoplastic and mold it around the whole forearm.
Yeah,
And then,
Right.
like money.
Yeah, like that is expensive as hell.
Yeah.
And it would have been helpful if at any place in the files on Thingiverse they'd stated you also need 2 huge sheets of orthoplastic to do this, but whatever. So not too much of a fan of that design. The people from Guatemala had some myoelectric stuff that all behaved pretty poorly because it was just kind of their first attempts, and a shoulder hook driven robo-arm that I actually really liked. It was horribly stiff for some reason, but my shoulders at least. Yes, I did. Yeah.
One of the things I'm looking at, and we're trying to close this thing. I'm looking at a passive prosthetic device for a 19-month-old.
Okay, sorry. Dad interrupted me.
That's all right. I'm looking at building a passive prosthetic hand for a 19-month-old child. And it's just going to be nothing more than some silicone fingers with some bendable wires in them. And I was going to ask you, Nick, and we don't have to talk about this right now, but I'm thinking about using some orthoplast to attach just this passive device to this 19-month-old girl. And anyway, it's just an idea. But I'm not sure how to, because if a 19-month-old, they're obviously very young, but their skin is very tender, and you can't put much pressure on it.
I wouldn't do anything for someone that can't talk yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's asking for trouble because they won't be able to report any discomfort very well. So you'll have to rely on visual signs to figure out that, oh, this is rubbing them the wrong way or anything of that sort.
They're also growing so fast.
At that age, they would probably try to pull it off. At that age, if it's uncomfortable, they'll probably try to take it off.
Right.
About that age, when I first started splinting my arm to try to keep it straight while I was growing through that first growth spurt, and I hated my splints, but that also meant that I ended up with an awful lot of orthoplasts to play with as a child after I would grow out of them.
I'm going to take your advice, Nick, and I think you're right. I think 19 months is just way too young, because the risk of injury is greater than the possibility of benefit at that age.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean,
you need to be able to monitor the child all the time to see if they're developing sores, to see if they're uncomfortable, see if they're unhappy. There's a lot of risk with that.
I agree.
Yeah, I would recommend not doing it until the child is old enough to speak.
Right.
Once the child learns to talk, it's worth exploring this with them.
I think these parents, they care so much about this child, and they want to do something for the child, and then they come to us, and we get sucked. Or me, I'm speaking of me. I get sucked into this. Well, I want to help this person, but then, you have to look at the factors and be reasonable.
Yeah, it's worth.
All right. Well, that's all I have to say.
It's worth having these kind of conversations with the parents. Once you've had a chance to think things through, it's worth talking it over with them and then getting more input from them. They're wanting to do what's right for their kids, so if they understand the risks and understand the concerns, they'll make the right decision. But it's worth keeping the conversation.
I'm going to take this conversation. I'm going to bounce it off of Jen Owen, and I'm sure she'll probably have the same observations you guys have. Yeah, she'll probably say no, Bob, it's too young.
And keep lines of communication open with the parents as you have these conversations, because they may have more input that'll change your mind, but at the same time, they need to understand why you would decide not to do this at this point. Make arrangements to start doing it later when the child is older and can talk. But yeah, at this age, there's not. But have the conversation with the parents, because they need to understand that you're not just abandoning them, that you want to wait until there's a better way to do this with less risk.
You make a lot of sense. Thank you so much.
Yeah, my life has been spent on both sides of these conversations because of being raised in the hospitals, and then also seeing all the other kids that were at the Shriners hospitals, their parents having to talk things over with the doctors, and some of those conversations were happening right next to me because the kids were my friends or whatever, and I've seen how these conversations go, and the best answer is to get as much input from the parents and give as much feedback to the parents as possible, because they really do want to do what's right for the kids, and they need to have good information in order to do that.
I will absolutely, categorically do exactly as you said. I will keep the parents apprised of all conversations. Thank you. Thank you so much.
So anything else?
Yeah.
Even outside of the hands area.
So in general, I really liked the shoulder hook powered one. It was much easier to pick stuff up with than even any of the wrist driven ones we had there.
So,
and even though their hand was horribly clunky.
Yeah, because I think Andres brought it up with John, but I share the concern. I'm really worried about this whole approach of the elbow being the source.
Yeah, that's just really clunky. I don't like that at all.
Just the whole sort of biomechanics associated with that. I don't think it's feasible. So you're saying it was like a shrug-based closure?
Yeah. So what it was there was a hook on there. Well, there was a loop that went around this shoulder, and then it ran around their back and through a bicycle cable from someplace around here to the wrist more or less. So you shrug the shoulder forward just a bit, and it pulled cable through and gripped. And it was really, really stiff, like incredibly hard to pull with my hands, but easy to do with my shoulder. Which,
A lot more
First
strength,
of all-
a lot more muscle in your shoulders.
yeah.
And it sounds like they were going across the entire back of the,
Mm-hmm.
using both sides of the back.
Yeah, to an extent.
Right, right.
I think you could.
And that's an established design, isn't it?
Hmm?
In commercial devices, I feel like I've seen that before.
Yeah, shoulder hook or shoulder-powered hooks are a common commercial device. Yeah.
Yeah, very
Um,
common.
Right.
Yeah, but anyways, I really liked that mechanic. I'm probably going to try and build something like that for Grace at some point.
I think I'll.
Less busy.
All right.
I actually heard somebody
I'm
post. Somebody talked about a elbow-driven flexion device, and I don't know who said it, but they thought that how awkward would it be to have to bend your elbow and then flex your hand? It makes it a very awkward motion.
Right.
Absolutely.
That was. I think Nick was actually saying a lot about that on a previous hangout.
Yeah, I had been looking at building one like that for Grace, and Jen
Yes.
told me that Ivan had found. Yep, like that. Jen told me that Ivan had found that those things were pretty much unusable, and he didn't know why RoboHand was still making them.
Right. Hey, listen, I'm going to sign off, but in summation, I would like to say that if anyone needs any special fasteners made or any special machining made, let me know. That's what I do. So if I can help you make, I need some of these pins like this, threaded or tapped or anything you need. I can get stuff lasered for free. I can make you any parts you guys need.
Cool.
I may be taking you up on that.
So do you have like any CNC equipment?
Say again, please.
Eventually, I'm going to be building. I'm getting a fairly cheap 3D printer, and I think one of my first projects is going to be making a better one, a rep wrap or something. And there's going to be some parts I just can't print, so I might have to look into other ways to get them made right if I can't purchase them.
I would not be an expert
But I
on
was
3D
asking
printers
how-
by any means. But
Yeah,
I
you
would
should
say,
need,
go ahead,
you
Nick.
shouldn't need any custom parts for a 3D printer. You can buy all of them off the shelf.
Okay, that rests that issue easier in my mind then.
As a
Yeah, I'm
machine,
pretty sure
your shop, Bob, or do you have?
say again.
Are you all
Say
manual
again.
in your shop, or do you have any
All manual.
CNC machine?
I'm all manual, but I job out my laser work and water jet and wire EDM. But yes, I'm all manual.
Understood.
I've got a hard inch precision lathe, and I can make anything.
I have to get off pretty soon as well, but the last thing I wanted
Okay.
to sort of talk about was exoskeleton gloves, basically. So there was a
Oh, right.
conversation with the woman from the Hemispherectomy Foundation that basically ended in us deciding we need to build some sort of rigid glove that we can drive similar to all of our other prosthetics with cables, so that we could use a shoulder hook to drive the existing but paralyzed hands on these kids. And we also had, I think, 3 people pop up at Maker Faire that said, so-and-so that I'm acquainted with has a paralyzed hand. Do you have anything for that?
Right.
Really?
So I think that's something we should definitely figure out how to do.
It would just be a shoulder-driven hand.
Yeah, well, I think the tough part's going to be building a comfortable sort of exoskeleton around their existing hand to drive it. They've got their normal flesh
So,
hand,
again, you gotta see it.
and they want to make it grip.
Okay, I gotcha. Yeah, that would be called an orthopedic device. Is that right? Is that correct?
The distinction gets really
orthotic?
hazy.
orthotic, I think was the word has been used.
Orthotic.
Or
Yeah,
thrown
you're
around
right.
a few
It's
times.
orthotic.
I mean, theoretically, everything we've built is orthotic because it's not an implant, but the line gets really fuzzy with these things.
Yeah.
Well, it's not replacing flesh is, for me, the distinction.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. So that would make our other stuff prosthetics and that an orthotic.
Right.
So Ivan and I were talking about this a bit, and we were thinking that it would be ideal to put as much as possible, keep the mechanics of it off of the insides of the fingers, because that would allow whatever sense of touch they have left to still be used, which in hemispherectomy patients is
Right.
none. But I think in stroke patients they still have touch and just not control.
You could probably manage off to the side and it's similar to this arrangement here. Leaving the front
Yeah.
skin completely exposed.
One thing I had thought about was to have sort of plates on the side of each phalange that just butted up against each other at the joint, and then on the top side of the plates have elastic between them, and on the bottom side have cables. So basically just do what we're doing already, but with very thin things attached to the sides of fingers instead of whole fingers.
Yeah, not wrapping around them, just plates.
Yeah, and
between-
you would need something wrapped around to hold them on, but that'd just be like a glove type of thing.
Right. Right. It wouldn't be a rigid something. It would be a like cloth.
Yep. And for symmetry's sake, you'd probably want to drive both sides of each finger, I think.
Right.
To add thickness, but yes.
Yeah, you wouldn't.
Yeah, I don't know. We'd have to
Already
try it.
with-
I don't know if pulling on one
different
side would be
material.
bad, but I think we can get
One
away
thing
with.
I would wonder about:
Go ahead.
are you still wanting to run when you run the cables to the where the fingers meet the palm? What do you do with the cable at that point? Do you tuck it between the fingers?
Yep,
or
I
do
was
you
going.
run
I
it
was
down
thinking between the
palm?
fingers, so you'd probably end up with another part that sits on top of the knuckle block that has little sticky
Yeah,
outy bits
like
for them to
like
shoot up into.
like a pulley.
Yeah,
to go
essentially.
around. Yeah. And
The nice thing
So
about this
we-
project is anyone working on it can test it on themselves. They don't need a stroke patient to try it on.
right. If you start doing designs after I've got a printer, I will be glad to test them.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of printer are you getting?
Hmm?
What type of printer
Oh,
are you
it's
getting,
the-
or are you building?
QUBD,
Hmm.
it's quintessential universal building device. QUBD.
How did you land on that one?
They were because it was in my price range at the time I ordered it.
Hmm.
It was like 400.
Oh wow, that's damn cheap. Okay. You might end up, well, you'll probably end up wanting to replace the hot end on that. I've heard rather bad things about it, but for that price, who cares? I mean, you can buy an E3D and still be cheaper than almost everything.
Yeah, it's. I suspect I'm going to want to do some modifications or replacement for the hot end and the extruder anyway, but having a starting point. And I think it's enough of a printer that I can start building a new printer with it. It's,
Yeah,
I don't
probably.
need. I mean, if I'm going to build a rep wrap from it, that might be all I need to get started.
Yep. So yeah, I should probably run, but think about making exoskeletons of that sort.
Right? I put it in the notes.
I think,
And-
don't note this, but Jen told me a while ago that Ivan was working on a shoulder hook, so hopefully that'll pop out soon. I
That would be
commented
interesting.
about it at some point, and she said, "Oh, don't comment about that yet. He wants to make it work before talking about it." So
Should I have should I edit
No.
this afterwards and remove it, or is it okay to have that in the broadcast?
Oh, right. Oh, whatever. Oh well.
It's rumors. So
Sorry,
Right.
I gossip on Hangouts on air. Good thing no one watches these.
Yeah.
Anyways,
surprising number do actually.
really well.
I do
Well.
see that people watch them on the
Hello,
on
everybody.
yeah. It's not a huge audience, but I get at least
Doesn't it?
10 hits on my YouTube channel.
Okay. Well, hopefully he'll make
Yeah,
that
it goes
work.
to YouTube, so you can edit it, right?
Don't worry about it.
I think I can, yeah.
This was like a
But-
month ago. Was it really? No, I don't know. Whatever. Sorry, Ivan. So yeah, think about exoskeletons.
But yeah, I
and-
really try to work on John.
What about John?
I haven't convinced him away from the elbow actuated design yet.
Oh,
So I'm
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, he
I
should
gotta
talk to
work
Ivan.
on that a little bit.
You should talk to Ivan about that. Jen made it sound like he's pretty strongly against the things.
Yeah,
Alright.
I was even watching the video where he was letting the kid attempt to use the elbow, and I could see that the kid was having some difficulty bending.
Yeah, I mean,
There's a lot of leverage
people-
action, and you're grabbing the wrong end of the lever.
yeah, and people were having a lot of trouble figuring out just the wrist-driven ones, just because they
Yeah.
were. I mean, the whole your hand is moving as it closes thing was throwing a lot of people off. Some kids picked it up really well, but others didn't, and that issue will just be way worse on elbow-driven ones. Like it'll
Yeah.
take a lot of
Yeah.
forethought to grab anything.
Yeah, or just you. It's amazing as you use things how much muscle memory you develop for that
Mhm.
kind of thing. But you would have to learn to time your sweeping arm to grab the object as the fingers are closing.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's any way to pick up a water bottle without sloshing a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
except pick it up with the cap still on, I guess. So I guess that's all. Anything else
Yeah.
we should bring up? Or?
While I'm tossing out ideas that have been sitting in my head and not being worked on, I'd like to see a bistable thumb. So a thumb that is stable in this position, and then you can probably pull it away from the hand slightly and flip it back to here, and then it clicks back in. So it's stable in either
Yeah.
position without interference from
Yeah.
the other hand.
That
Okay.
or even a continuously adjustable.
Bob Roth was talking about.
Yeah, continuously adjustable, I think, would be tricky and wouldn't provide that much of an advantage. As I see it, the two
Bob
positions
Roth
we
mentioned
yeah.
his thumb earlier in this conversation, and he's got something that you use your hand to adjust the position of the thumb, but it was it had the motion was controlled by tendons that way, but it had a way to be like gear driven, I think. So he said he was going to post something about that to the group sometime soon. It might be worth reminding him if it doesn't go in by tomorrow. But I want to see some video of his new thumb because I've been looking at it with interest. As somebody who doesn't have a thumb, figuring out a prosthetic thumb that would be useful for me is of interest.
The way I
Go ahead.
see it, the two main things we want out of a thumb is simple pinching and like gross opposition of the whole hand. And for simple pinching, that's kind of a precise alignment, so I think that having it be a single position, which is for pinching, and then a single position for opposing, might actually be easier to use than having it be continuously adjustable and having to figure out right about here is where it pinches well.
And that's what he was describing is something that you manually adjust the position of the thumb. when you need to change your grip, and then manually adjust it back when you need to change your grip back.
Mm-hmm.
It was gear driven. It just had the flexion and extension still operated in either position, but it can be moved. And he was mentioning that when we were discussing my arm, and so I think that he's going to post something about it sometime soon.
Well, anyways, I have to run. So, nice talk.
All right.
See you
I'm
about.
going to go ahead and kill the broadcast, and I will see
later.
you guys
See ya.
later.